Ladies and gentlemen, this is Joe's Classic Video Games back with another cool pinball repair video for you this evening. This is one of the most popular electromechanical pinball machines of all time. The wonderful Space Odyssey. They also made a Space Mission that you may remember, which was basically the same exact game. It's just a 4-player instead of a 2-player. So this is the 2-player version. And we've been working on it a little bit. So a gentleman brought this to us, wanted us to work our magic on it, and that's what we're in the middle of doing. So the first thing we did on the first video that you may have missed is we worked on the playfield. So we cleaned it all up, got it looking pretty good, but guess what? The thing won't play. Apparently, the playfield being dirty was not the problem, but we took care of that. So the dirt on the playfield that was on there is no longer going to hinder it. So we tried to start it up in the previous video, and basically it keeps trying to kick the ball out and gives you all kinds of crap with that, and the score motor just keeps turning, and it's got problems, right? So we're going to go through this thing and fix it. There is a fly driving me crazy. Hold on a second. A freaking fly is in here. What in the world? I'm going to have to get a fly swatter. All right, so we're going to start the way we always start. At the wall, right? So we're going to follow the power into the machine to the transformer panel on the bottom of the machine. Now there's a whole bunch of relays down there that we need to clean up and get making sure that they're doing their thing. But it's a halfway functioning game already. It's just not working exactly how it's designed. So as we go through, if we find something that we think would have caused the problems that we're running into with it starting, we'll point those out. But the first thing I'm going to do is turn it off and remove the playfield from the machine so that we can easily get down to the transformer panel. Alright, so I've sat it over there next to this Bally Strikes and Spares. They can be company for a little while. Won't be long. We'll be having it back in here soon enough. But here is the bottom of the cabinet. We're going to clean it up first. Right? We looked through this in the other video, and I only saw 2 things or 3 things that are worth even mentioning, really. One, the lock relay is real noisy, but it's still working. That's typical of the lock relay. They get loud and start buzzing because they're on all the time. The whole time the game's turned on, they're on. You kind of need it though for one simple purpose. See this little switch here? It just pulls in and I guess it opens that switch. So you could just bend the switch open and it would work just as good, but the purpose of the switch is to end a game that you are in the middle of when the game is turned on. So let's say that you're playing a game and you turn the machine off in the middle of a game. When you turn the machine back on with that switch closed because the lock relay hasn't pulled in yet, that switch will end the game and turn the game over relay on. Right? So that's kind of the purpose of it. They may use it in the tilt circuit too, I can't remember. But basically that's its only purpose. So you don't have to have it, but we like it to be how it's supposed to be. So we're probably going to leave it in there. Okay, so that's one thing that's worth thinking about. We're going to try to quiet it down. The second thing is that these chimes are all screwed up. I mean, it's the worst sounding chimes I've ever heard, ever. Bad as it gets, people. Because the rubber grommets have all dried out and broken apart and fallen off. So every time the chime gets hit, it's just beating the crap out of itself, banging up against the metal plates and stuff. And that stuff is aluminum. So it's a soft metal and it's just getting all ate up. Look at that crap. Somebody has flopped them over too. These two here have been reversed. See how they the wear is on the top? That's from hitting that bar underneath it that all that was caused. Okay, so that's the second thing that we really need to worry about. And then the third thing is that the action of it doing that has made there be metal flakes all over the bottom of the freaking cabinet. So there's like a metal dust everywhere. Look at that crap. And since it's just kind of a dusting, it's probably all right, but I kind of want to get rid of as much of it as I can because it's metal, it's conductive. So you don't want to get metal dust all over something electrical. That could be a problem. And it probably won't short anything together just because of the nature of these machines. All of the voltages are away from each other, so like it's hard to short that to that. By the way, I'm 8 inches away from it. It just looks like I'm touching it. And I'm unplugged from the wall. But, you know, to short that to that, you need a big chunk of metal, really. Dust isn't really going to do it. But if dust was all along this and then over to here, or let's say dust was from here to here and the dust was kind of all touching each other, it would short out, you know. So it needs to be cleaned up a little bit. And then we need to, you know, we need to fix those chimes so that it doesn't keep throwing dust everywhere. So that's kind of the big issues in the bottom of the cabinet. Everything else looks pretty decent. You've got your typical stuff, like that's a little solder splash where somebody was working on something under the playfield and dropped a big glob of solder down. It's kind of hard to not do that whenever you're working on them. So we'll clean up that kind of stuff. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take this. I don't know if I can get the whole thing out. If I can get that whole transformer board easily out, we'll put it up here on the top so we can clean under it really good. But if not, we'll just clean around it as best we can. But I'm going to get a vacuum cleaner and start cleaning it up. And we'll save all of the little extra stuff that's laying around down in there. But we're basically, there's the power cord coming in. Right, we're starting right here at the beginning. All right, folks, so we vacuumed it all up. Look at that. It looks like a tomb now. Nice and empty. Okay, and here is the Mech board. Cleaned it up as best I could. I need to get like one of those small little vacuums that they use like in cars, because I've got a big old huge vacuum. But I got it pretty clean. Well, my standard of clean and yours may be different. I got most of the dust and the metal flakes gone. And that's clean enough for me. Now, if you're doing this at your house and you're doing it on your machine, you can go all the way if you want. Now, what you could do is take everything off of this board, because if you look, it's all screwed or bolted on there. So if you took them 4 screws off, and those 2, and those 4, and blah, 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 you could carefully remove everything from this board and put it in your dishwasher. And that's not a joke. A lot of people have done that. You can actually wash the thing and then let it completely dry, and it'll be just fine. But don't do that, because I don't want to be responsible if you mess it up. But a lot of people do that. You would think that would cause problems with the transformer. As long as you let it get dry, it's fine. And it'll clean it up and make it look good. And then some people will make a new Mech board. I've even seen them where they're painted, or you could just paint that one. And it makes them look really nice. But to do that, it's an incredible time commitment. I'm here at a store, so I don't have a dishwasher handy, right? So I don't do that. But we clean it up just a little bit. It certainly will be functional like this. So now, I'm going to say something controversial. Very controversial here. I might get a warning strike for saying this on YouTube. You know, they don't like you telling the truth out in public anymore. The Williams EMs may be the best designed EMs of any of the companies. That's right, I said it. Deal with it, people. Just little things. Now I'm talking about as far as repair, right? I'm not talking about gameplay. Gameplay, most people believe that the Gottlieb games are the best designed electromechanical games. And there's nothing wrong with the repair design of the Gottlieb games. So I'm talking about, like, you know, how all of this works, right? There's nothing wrong with how it's designed. It's not inferior or anything like that, or has a flaw. It's just fine. Same thing with Bally. I love the Bally EM games, and I've worked on a ton of them. The last probably, I don't know, multiple EMs that I've worked on are Bally's. We did a couple Freedoms. We did a Captain America. I mean, not Captain America. Captain Fantastic. We did a Knight Rider, and we've done several Bally EMs over and over and over again. We did that 3 million BC or 6 million BC. Did that one. We've done several Bally EMs in a row. But I haven't worked on a Williams EM in a while, but there's just things about it that are just slightly better. So I'll show you a little bit of what I'm talking about. So for instance, whenever I was talking a few minutes ago about lifting that up and I couldn't remember what you had to take loose. Well, you just unplug it. You can unplug the whole thing. I just took the I think this is the coin door. This is the power switch. And then the chimes and the knocker over there. Unplug these from the head. We had the play-filled ones unplugged, and the whole thing pops up out of there. So, you know, when you're working on it, that makes it a little bit easier. Now, the Bally ones are almost like that, but you have to take the... I think you have to remove the chime unit to get it out, and then also you have to... the power wiring comes over here, so you have to take this power switch out as well. So it just takes a little more time. The Gottlieb ones will come out as well, but there's a board over here that you have to take loose off the wall of the cabinet. So it's just a little bit more work. Now that doesn't mean that they're a pain to work on or that the Bally's are a pain to work on. I'll work on any of them, and I don't even mind working on any of them. It's not like I prefer to work on these or anything like that, but it's just little things like that. It's just a little bit better designed. Other little things, see the switches on the score reel there? Well, the way they've got this mounted with this meter in front of it, it makes it real easy to just get to all the switches. Now on the Gottlieb one, it's sideways, or not the, what's the other one? The Bally one. Well, I don't know. But a lot of times these are sideways, and it's just harder to get to the stuff because there might be something here in the way. So that's a little better. And then just stuff like the relays. Now, I first saw somebody mention this, and I had noticed it, but I hadn't really thought about it. When I saw our buddy Kim at the Goat Shed EM Pinball Repair Palace in Australia mention this. If you don't know about those folks, they run a little, they call it a shed, but I say it's a palace. They run a little shed that they repair pinball machines in, electromechanical pinball machines in Australia, and they film videos and put them on YouTube. And those guys, both of them, really know their stuff, right? So Kim was mentioning in one of the videos that he loves these Williams ones because of the throw. And I think he's got a great point. So look at this relay. See how long the blades are? Well, just the way the thing's designed, whenever it moves pretty significantly, right? So it's really easy to adjust them so that they're touching and coming apart. It's just you got plenty of room to work on them. They're not even close to each other. It's just these big, beautiful relays. The Gottlieb relays and the Bally relays are not quite as nice. The Bally ones are kind of similar to this, but the Gottlieb ones in particular are really, really small, and the blades are only about that long. And man, you got to get them things just right, you know. That's not to say that's a design flaw. It's just they were done differently. But by this point, Williams was just knocking it out of the park and trying to make a run for Gottlieb's title as the king of EM pinball machines. So this is a very well-designed machine. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to go through and clean every little relay, okay? And like I was just saying, you've got to get the switches so that this one is normally closed, but when the relay pulls in, it should open, and it does, right? This one is normally open, and when the relay pulls in, it should close, and that one does. Now on this one, see how there's this one here where there's a blade on either side, so it should touch one blade, and then when it pulls in, it should touch the other blade and not touch the original blade, so it should go back and forth. If you get every switch doing that, the thing will work great. Okay, so I'm going to go through, see if I run into anything weird, and if I do, I will film it for you. Well, I didn't see anything eventful at all. So basically, you're just going through and cleaning the contacts at the end of the switches. So I use a little worn out file. You don't want to use anything that's super aggressive, but you want to use something that'll clean the dirt off of the contacts. Because basically your problem is when they touch, electricity has to pass from one contact to the other. If it's dirty, the electricity won't pass. Or it may pass, but not enough electricity. So if you're trying to send 40 volts through the contacts to make a coil turn on or something, maybe only 20 volts gets through, or whatever, right? So you're just trying to clean everything so that they now can conduct electricity, right? But they don't have to be spotless or anything. All right, obviously there's still dirt all over the coils and the board under it and all that. You don't have to get it looking brand new, but you need those contacts to be electrically conductive. Now you also need to make sure there's no broken wires. So as you're going through, look at all of the wires that are soldered to the switches and see if any of them have popped loose. None of them on this one had. Now our lock coil up here that's all burnt all to crap. Excuse me. Just because the paper wrapper is burnt off of it doesn't mean that it has to be replaced. You saw it's still working. The noise is usually from a vibration. So it's trying to pull this in and it's not mating quite right. So it's going and just buzzing, right? So if you clean the back side of this plate and then also the piece that grabs it, sometimes that will fix it. And then sometimes the spring is too tight. If the spring is looped weird or whatever, sometimes that'll be it. But then sometimes it's just the coil's old and it needs replaced. This one's getting there, so I don't have one of those coils, but we may have to order one. The lug here has separated, but that's not that big of a deal either, as long as the wires don't end up touching the wrong thing. It's just getting hot because it's on the whole time that the game's on. Now, that's probably been like that since 1977. You know what I mean? This game came out in, I think, 75 or something like that. 74, 75. They probably ran it non-stop for 3 or 4 years. By that time, that coil was like we see it now. And then it spent time either in somebody's house where they turned it on every once in a while, or it's been in a warehouse for 25 years or something. So it's not like that this happens over and over again. Think of the way these were originally operated. You turn the thing on and then leave it on for years. That's when the damage was done, right? It probably got 95% of its plays within the first 3 years of being built, because it was the new thing out. And now, nobody's played it in a while. So whenever you have stuff like that, if you're going to make an order and you're ordering some other stuff, go ahead and order it. It's about $20 for a new coil. Go ahead and order a new one while you get your other stuff coming in. But you don't technically have to replace it, right? It's probably going to work fine for quite a while. All right, so that's that. So we got all that. We'll keep our eye on that, of course. And, the switches up here. The score reel switches. Same thing. You're just cleaning all of the contacts. And then if you turn that cam, you see the little divots in the cam. It's got grease and stuff all over it, but, nothing wrong with that. When you turn there's a little rider there on the cam that will fall in that divot and move all the switches down and then move them all back up. Well, same thing. If they're open, they should close. If they're closed, they should open. So it's just the exact same technology. It's just they have them mounted on a cam. Now, the reason for that is so they can time it. So let me show you the timing of it. Let me see if I can get a good picture of it here. Okay. So the first cam did its thing, and then shortly after, the second cam did its thing, and then shortly after, the third cam did its thing, and then now the fourth cam has done its thing, which is a little different, right? And so now the fifth cam has done its thing at the same time that the fourth cam is turning off, right? Oh, here comes the sixth cam, and then there's the seventh cam. Now while that's happening, this cam on the end, the impulse cam, it's hitting it over and over again. Right? So let's say you need, it's a brilliant design once you kind of learn how they work. And it's all detailed in the schematics, and the more you read them, the more you'll understand it. But basically, whenever certain things happen on the playfield, it turns this motor on. And it starts turning, and it turns around, I think, half a revolution on these, or maybe a full revolution. Well, you can tell by this, actually. Let's see here, 1, 2, 3, half a revolution. So it turns this on and it turns around half a revolution. Okay, that makes certain things come on and off based on what cam they're on, right? So one of these switches may turn on the out hole relay, but only if the ball is actually in the out hole, because the switch that turns it on is connected through that switch. So if the ball's not in the out hole, that switch isn't connected, and even though this turns on to turn on the out hole relay, it doesn't get there because the switch isn't connected. And every time this turns around halfway, that out hole relay tries to turn on, but it can't because the switch isn't connected, right? So it's just stuff like that. So all of these switches represent things that it's trying to accomplish in the game. This one on the end, the reason it has 5 little bumps every time it turns around half is so that you can score multiples of points. So you saw on the bottom of the playfield, at least in the first video, where they had like the 500 point relay. So when that pulls in, it starts the score motor. There's a switch on the 500 point relay, probably, I'm not sure, but I believe there is, that starts the score motor, okay? And then if the 500 point relay is closed while this is turning, there's a switch on here that closes 5 times. That's connected to the 100 point relay through the 500 point relay. Okay? So it's kind of hard to understand, but so you need to score 500 points. Well, there's no computer. So there's no way to tell the relay to turn on and off 5 times, or is there, right? So each time the 100 point relay pulls in, you get 100 points. So something needs to tell it to turn on 5 times. So you hit the switch, it scores 500 points. The way it does that is by holding in the 500 point relay. The 500 point relay holds on the score motor. The score motor starts turning. There's a switch over here that's connected to the 100 point relay. When this turns all the time for other things, to start the game, to make the out hole relay start, whatever, when this turns, it always hits that switch going to the 100 point relay. But it never works because the 500 point relay is not on. As soon as the 500 point relay is on, when it starts turning that time, that switch is connected through the 500 point relay. Bam, 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 you get your 500 points. And then they have some way of making it where the 500 point relay turns itself off once it gets to a certain spot. Well, how would you do that? Well, maybe you've got a switch here that holds the 500 point relay on once it's turned on, right? So the 500 point relay pulls in and closes a switch on itself that's connected through here. Well, that switch is always closed until it gets to a certain spot, but usually it doesn't matter because the 500 point relay is not on. But in the event that the 500 point relay comes on, that switch will hold it closed until it gets to the point that that opens, and then it opens and kills the 500 point relay. So this stuff is stacked on top of itself over and over and over and over again in the game so that it can do all of the wonderful things that it does whenever you play the game. And it makes perfect sense, logical 1 and 0 sense whenever you figure it out. But until you figure it out, it's like, what in the world? Look at all these wires. This is incredible. This is crazy. I'll never figure it out. Everything's just a closed switch or an open switch. So it's literally as simple as that. It's a 1 and a 0, just like digital technology is. So a computer, like your iPhone, is a collection of 1s and 0s, basically. If we're not doing tri-state stuff. But yeah, you get the point. You get that's new stuff. You get the point. But basically everything's on or off. There's just little switches that are on and off everywhere. And you have to get all of them clean and the thing will work. And you'll notice too that with the exception of that lock relay, most of the stuff holds up where you don't really have to replace it. Or at least not in this first 50 years. So for the first 50 years, they've held up. And we'll see what they do in the next 50 years. But most of the stuff doesn't need to be replaced. If you do need to replace something like that lock coil, do you think this is the only machine that has a burnt up lock coil? Hell no, this is not the only machine that has a burnt up lock coil. Every machine has a burnt up lock coil. So that coil will be the same on every Williams pinball machine, and all of them could use a new one, and probably a third of them actually need the new one, right? So the pinball repair, the pinball parts places, and there are several that still exist, they make sure that you can buy that Williams coil because that's part of their bread and butter. You know, it's a good little purchase. So that one coil will fit in all the other machines. It doesn't have to be a Space Odyssey. Williams probably used that coil for 20 years, right? So any game that has that same lock coil, the parts place has the ability to sell that coil. So that's a really good item to reproduce, so they continue to make it. And to be honest, they make all the coils pretty much. You rarely run into a coil that you can't get a brand new one for. So anyway, we're going to check these fuses to make sure they're right, and then I'm going to slide them back down into place, and we'll bolt it all back in. All right, folks. So we got it back in there. Check it out. Now, To me, it looks a heck of a lot better than it did. Look at that. A place for everything and everything in its place. Look at that. That's how it's supposed to be. Okay, now on to these Jones plugs. Old man Jones invented these many years ago. I've heard that these aren't actually Jones plugs, but look, folks, that's what we call them. You ain't got to argue about everything with me. Come on now. Come on, people. You don't know if they're... People, you don't know nothing about damn Jones. Come on now. How you going to argue about a damn plug? Come on. Come on now. All right, so this one I've already cleaned. See how shiny and beautiful that is? Do you see how gorgeous that is? Now imagine you're a little electron trying to jump through that son of a... Well, right? That would work real good. Now look at this one. Ugh. See how filthy. Look how dirty it is. That's no place for an electron, or whatever it is. Right, so I clean them with this little thing. Now you can use sandpaper. You can use a file. I've heard you can use chemicals, but I haven't attempted that yet. I'm drug-free, people. The only chemical I like is root beer. So this is a knife cleaning Japanese sponge. It's about hard as a rock, and it's to remove rust from things. So let me show you just how miraculous this is. So like this thing here, look, that looks pretty cool, right? Now this is this guy's machine, so I don't own this machine, but just to give you an example. You rub this crap on freaking anything metal. And it cleans it up. Now, you could probably do the same thing with sandpaper. It's basically a sandpaper rock or something, right? It had some kind of Japanese text on here that I, sad to say, is about gone, but I didn't know what the hell it said anyway, so it doesn't really matter. Somebody sent us some of these. It took me a while, but I figured out what they were in English. So I have these on my website if you want some. Go to lionsarcade.com. And we have a page on there where we sell all of our arcade games, our pinball machines, our jukeboxes. But we also have a page on there where we sell parts that we use in our repairs, including these little things. These are cheap. They're like $10 for 2 or 3 of them, something like that. So there's a link to them on Amazon. Now, if you click that link, or there's links down below this video in the description. If you click any of our links that take you to Amazon, that stores there's a little tracking device somehow where they know your social security number or something. I don't think they do it that way, but it's something like that. But somehow they keep track that I sent you there, and so it gives me a tip if you choose to buy anything on Amazon, including those little rust erasers, right? And we've got other things on there like our t-shirts and some of that stuff. So if you decide you're going to buy anything on Amazon, use our link because it gives us a tip. So we appreciate everybody that's been doing that for years now. Now, I'm going to clean these up and then I can plug that in the back. I've already cleaned up these ones here in the front. One goes to the coin door and one goes to the power switch. There's another couple over there for the knocker and the screwed up chimes, but we're going to leave those unplugged for now because they both need a little work. The knocker I can see is stuck. Fix that, and the chimes are all screwed up. But we're going to go ahead and plug those back in, and then slide the playfield back in here so we can look at the bottom of the playfield. All right, folks. So I cleaned the Jones plugs on the playfield and slid it back in place. Now keep in mind we haven't done anything to the things that are attached to the bottom of the playfield. Lock coil sounds about the same. Okay, nothing else happened. So let's see if we can get any kind of play out of it. Probably need to add credits. They have it rigged up where you hit this button to add a credit. All right, so we have the same exact problem we had earlier. It tries to kick the ball out over and over again. You hear the score motor just continuously turning. okay? And you can kind of play it. It's scoring, but there's no chimes. Remember, we unplugged them. So now we've got the score just running and running and running. All right, so that's enough of that. So, it still has issues. So our problem apparently either wasn't on the mechanism board or I missed it whenever I cleaned through it, which I could be. But we'll find it, either on the schematics or by finding it somewhere else in the game. So next up, we're going to do the underside of the playfield. So I hope you enjoyed it so far. Make sure to leave your comments down below. Now keep in mind, the one thing that a lot of people that I run into a lot is people don't realize that all of the Williams games are pretty much alike for several years. So if you've got another game that's not necessarily a Space Odyssey, but it's a Williams EM from around this time, it's going to be very similar to this. It just look a little different, right? So a lot of times I'll get people asking me specific questions about a specific game. Hey, have you ever done a video on this game? Well, no, I haven't, but I've done a video on 30 other games just like it, right? So the kind of the techniques of what we're doing applies to pretty much any EM pinball machine, and the specific stuff that we're looking at applies for sure to any Williams game pretty much from this era. So I hope you enjoyed it. Give us a thumbs up for taking the trouble to film it for you. Make sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And finally, last but not least, don't forget about my brother. My brother Donnie has his own channel here on YouTube as well. I'm over there with him a lot. Lately, he's been working on a 1965 Chevy pickup truck that we've been carefully going through, just like we're going through this 70s model pinball machine. So I'll see you over there on his channel. The link is down below, and we'll see you on the next video where hopefully we'll get this sucker playing.